Hello. My name is Vladimir Amont, and I'm a multi-instrumentalist, composer, and I have a special ability actually. I specialize also in improvisation. Not even just jazz improvisation, but I can improvise music, especially in classical or really in any context. And let me give you a little demonstration real quick before we dive in too far. So I'm going to play something in, say, C sharp minor. How about that? Here we go. Cool. All right. So that was just a little thing off the top of my head, and one of the things that I love doing is actually just sitting down at the piano and improvising for as long as I want to. It could sometimes it could be for many hours. I've actually played performances, paid performances that way before. So it's really fun, something I really love to do, and it's related to what I want to talk to you today about in this lesson. So in this lesson, I want to talk about the subject of how to balance your practice. So practice is a big part of being a musician, right? It's so important for it's the way that we perfect our skills and the way that we refine certain parts of our how we gain familiarity overall with the music that we expose ourselves to, right? So of course, in the more conventional way, practice is the way you get better. So, I've become fascinated through working with students and my own personal experience with the idea of how to balance a practice session. How do you balance your practice? What's a good, effective way to practice so that you're making progress, but you're not feeling like you're burned out, or you're not feeling like you're like, or it's like, but it becomes tedious. For some people, I know that practice can feel tedious, and I want to first of all say that it doesn't have to be that way. You can make practice fun, and especially you can make practice effective, and that's what this lesson is all about. So, how do we make our practice sessions balanced and effective? Uh, I have a certain framework that I recommend. It's an approach that I find works the best, and it is what I call the 20-40-40 rule. So each number reflects a percentage of time and energy that you devote to an aspect of your practice. So 20% of your time you spend, I would recommend to spend on your theory, your technique, anything that you do with sort of like drilling or any kind of repetitive practice. Maybe you want to work out on your scales or your chords. So something I recommend to virtually any students, especially those who are interested in composition, is to really learn all of your chords and all of your scales, kind of like learning the multiplication table or the times table in math. Just memorize them. You don't have to perform them or play them. Just know them, as well as theory concepts. So any kind of theory training. So all of that is in your 20%. So no more than 20%, but I suggest no less than that because you want to keep that balance. So what's next? 40. The next category is 40% of your time is to go towards learning and studying music or new music. And by new music I mean music that you don't know, composed by other artists, composers, or whomever. So you go through life and you encounter music that inspires you, that captivates you. So it's very important that you become aware of which types of music, which type of genres maybe, or if it's multiple genres, or just really overall, what it is about the music that you hear that really captivates you, that really inspires you. So the first principle that I want to hone in on in this 40% in this category is choose music that you really love, that you really feel like inspired and enthusiastic about. You know that feeling of when you have like goosebumps, or you just have like that. Sometimes I'm working out, or I'm driving, and I just put on something and I'm just like, whoa, this is really like pumping me up. I feel so good, or maybe a completely different time, when I'm just like really sad about something, or there's going through a difficulty in my life, and I find this piece of music that just makes my heart melt, and just makes me release all this emotion. So, really pay attention to the music that you love, is the first key part of that. The second is, when you learn this music, memorize it. It's so important to memorize it. I feel like a lot of, especially pianists, but a lot of musicians that I've encountered over my time, they feel, like they'll learn it with the sheet music, and they can play it really well. And by the way, that's also important in an accompanist setting, I can imagine. But when you really memorize and internalize the music, what happens is it kind of becomes a part of you on some internal level. It goes into something that I call the musical subconscious mind, the musical mind. And it's a funny thing, this little subconscious mind, I call it, because the more you feed it, the more it tends to return fruit in the form of musical ideas, or other inspirations, or just even capability in some sense. So very important. Choose the music that you really love and memorize it. Very, very important. A little side key point that I would also plug in there real quick is, take note in these pieces or songs that you learn. Take note of the parts of the music that you really feel captivated by, that you really feel drawn to, that really just make you want to soar. Like some people might describe it as the drop, or maybe that's that solo section or whatnot. So become aware of what you really love and what is not as strong. And choose the thing that you really love and you feel strongly about as what you learn. So that's the first 40% learning music. The last section is also 40%, and it has to do with experimentation. And experimentation is maybe just a fancy word for jamming. So you want to practice your jam skills, or your improvisational skills, and these are very closely linked with your compositional skills. Remember, composition isn't just about theory. The theory that you would learn for composing music, all these like rules for voice leadings and counterpoint and all the things that you may have encountered. All of these things are important, but they're tools. They're tools that you use to create and refine and organize your musical ideas. But music theory in and of itself isn't really responsible for those like inspirations that you get. So what is? And the answer to that is a combination of what you put into that 20%, so knowing your fundamentals. It's also learning music. A big part of it is learning music that you love, because when you learn music that you love, you're planting in your musical mind, as I'm saying, these ideas. And these ideas, the more you add them, they start to bring fruit rather, in the form of your own variations or your own ideas. And to really help you learn how to express that, a good practice is to play some of these parts, or play some of these techniques, and then experiment them. Add a little bit of a variation on something. Maybe if it's a 4-chord progression, if let's say you're learning a song, right, in your other 40%, and the song has 4 chords, and so you're learning it. You've almost learned it, or you've already finished learning it, and you can play these 4 chords. But what would happen if you changed one of these chords around? What would happen if you adjusted something? So try something like that. Try to do something different in that regard, and see what comes out. Sometimes you'll play something that's really not good for your ear. And that's important too, because then you know what doesn't work. And as you experiment, as you try and jam out on different variations or different techniques, you'll find new expressions, new ways to create music. And this will sort of build this intuitive practice in you over time as you gradually do it more and more and more. So that's the 20-40-40 rule in a nutshell, and that's my way of balancing your practice time. So again, that's 20% on technical things, 40% on learning music that you already love, and then another 40% on enjoying and just experimenting on some of the ideas that come to your mind. So thank you so much for listening to this lesson. My name is Vladimir Armand, and it was a pleasure sharing with you some of these secrets and techniques that I have. Have a great time practicing, and see you soon.